today, the only thing that you really have to realize that you're here to do is to breathe. Deep, deep breaths. You will be rewarded for your breathing. That is how you keep the entire solar system in balance. Yes, the solar system. You are a part of the solar system, and your conversion of oxygen to carbon dioxide is part of that whole entire process. And you are a very crucial part of that process, and you get severely dealt with if you do not breathe properly. This is why you always hear about why do bad things happen to good people all the time? Because they're not breathing right. That is a crime, actually, in the scheme of the universe. And the universe gets rid of its people, it gets rid of the pieces, the molecules that aren't responding correctly. It's just survival of harmony over disharmony. So if you want to be a member of that harmonious molecule set, then you have to bring your part on this earth, and your only purpose on this earth is to breathe. Everything else that you do, all your little ambitions, all your life dreams, all your sense of purpose for this or that, it's all secondary. Because if you can't master this one particular purpose, all your other purposes will anyway. A lot of people achieve success for achieving maximum breathing capacity, and it only derails them and further contributes to their demise. Okay, you have to agree with me that there's nothing more important than life, right? And nothing sustains life better than breath. So it does go hand in hand on a very basic level, but also in a cosmic level. You will have better luck if you have more oxygen pumping through your lungs. Another principle that needs to be very, very well focused upon is that you can't make anybody else do anything. That's it. The only way you can affect change in somebody else is by affecting change in your universe. And your universe, the universe that you live in, is the universe that corresponds to the level of oxygen that you're taking in. If you are in a low oxygen universe, it is a very harsh universe. Okay, there's probably a very fascistic leader leading the people in that universe. You understand what I'm trying to say? That even things like your president, even things like the political system under which you live, it's all determined by your breathing. And if you want to change it, you have to change your breathing. You can't change it any other way. Of course, you can go down and demonstrate and do all kinds of things, but while breathing, while taking in as much oxygen as you can, it will make any cause that you take up more effective. Why? Because it is your purpose, your sole purpose on this earth. You can sit around all day long and watch. That's right. You can sit around all day long and watch TV and amount to nothing. As long as you're taking in deep breaths, you're more valuable than Steve Jobs to this universe. Understand that. That is what you are here to do. It's just like, I know I keep repeating it, but it's just like people don't want to get it through their head. They think they're here to do all these things, to get money, to get wealth, to get a house, to get this. That's not why you're here. That's not why you're here. Okay? And in the pursuit of those things, everybody experiences fear, anger, frustration, impatience, all these things. All they do is interrupt your breathing and make you a poor candidate for the harmony of the universe, and then you get weeded out. You understand, okay? That's why all protest, of course, should be nonviolent, for the simple reason that it will bring about. That's how you bring about harmony in the universe, is by being harmonious yourself. You can never bring about harmony by being disharmonious. And so the rage that you get into now and then, that has to all be cut out, okay? You are here to be happy. You have to feel free to feel good as you breathe. If you're overambitious, it means you've lost sight of what your true purpose is, and it is to take deep breaths. That's it. This is a letter of fallen wisdom number 1. Remember this. Remember that you cannot affect anybody else's behavior in a direct way. The only way that you can change the people that are around you is if you change your universe. So their counterparts in the low oxygen universe you will be free of them, and you will have a more enlightened set of friends. Yes, a different parallel universe set of friends based upon your level of oxygen that you take in. I know this sounds very outlandish, but that's why this is occult knowledge. This is something our ancestors knew. This is why people go to yoga class and all these things to try to reestablish their breathing. But the problem is, once they leave the class, they're no longer breathing anymore because they don't understand how important it is. It is the only thing that you need to do.
Of course, breathing, just as a reminder from the last episode, is one of the most important things you can do. One of the reasons I do this lecture is because every time you give a lecture, you're breathing better than if you aren't talking. The more you talk, the better. The loudmouths tend to breathe better. They tend to get lucky for that reason, even if disharmonious things are coming out of their mouth. That's why Rush Limbaugh seems to do so well. He is benefiting the universe by being such a bag of hot air, though he is hurting it by putting forth malignant lies. But let's go beyond the realm of the currently mundane and just talk about some of the points that I want to bring up here, okay? If you're not breathing properly, guess what? That is the source of all bad behavior. That is the source of all disharmonious action, is bad breathing. So this is why I've always stressed the big breathing thing, and that people just don't seem to want to understand how important it is. And we're going to discuss at the end of this some strategies for making sure that your breathing is kept up. Because let me just tell you some of the benefits you get from breathing, okay? First of all, you by living in a high oxygen, you can transfer yourself from a low oxygen universe to a high oxygen universe, and where everything is instantly better. And the reason why people can't always notice this change is because your memories adjust accordingly. So sometimes you might think that you might realize that something's changed in the back of your mind, but you'll never see it up front, in front of your face, your world change in front of you, because your mind is part of that world, and as the world changes, your mind changes. So you just have to understand that it happens. And I don't know how to convey it. It's something that you can see sometimes under heavy hallucinogens, but I don't recommend that. I just think you should just take my word for it. And a lot of times when you don't know, and I'm going to digress a little bit about belief systems, when you don't know what the truth is, sometimes a thought can get you to a place that's a good place, and it may just be a clever way of thinking about it. It may not be the truth, but a good way of thinking about things like this is the more you breathe, the better your life will be, and also the better person you will be, because guess what? If you create disharmony in the universe, you are going to be dealt with. You are going to be punished. You're going to be rewarded with a universe that that you deserve. How do you keep your breathing? How do you keep it going? I mean, sometimes you forget, and all of a sudden you go the whole day, and you're like, "Wow, I didn't breathe at all." Well, I recommend learning hip-hop music. I have a friend, Logan, who you'll see his stuff at loganfromthefuture.com. He's a student of mine, and he found that rap is a great way to get breath control and to just make sure you're breathing. The more you practice rapping, the more you know you're breathing. Same with singing. Same with giving lectures. Same with doing podcasts. Anything where you can use your mouth and talk and give a lecture, the longer you can go and do it, the better. And in fact, it's better to just talking is one of the best ways to keep your breathing going, because you don't have to think about it. You don't have to use any apparati, and this is something I'm going to talk about soon. And you can just kind of keep going, and you know you're breathing right. Another way to keep breathing. Now, I have this little thing. It's called a counter, and you can usually you can get these in eBay. You can get them in bulk. and I'm going to put a link up to the eBay store where I think they sell the best ones of these. They're little counters. They cost about $1 a piece, and they're like usually head counters that bouncers use, but they're digital. And if you are sitting and watching TV, you should be holding these things and just counting each breath you make. And you should try to get a tally going and try to set goals for, where you want to get up to today. You should always try to get up to a higher level than you got up to the other day. So, you're inevitably sitting down watching a movie. Those are perfect times to get your counting level up. Now, you can't sit around always counting your breaths. Obviously, you have things to do. And so you can make a pledge with yourself that with each task, and you kind of divide your day up into small tasks. One of them could be cleaning the dishes. One of them could be cleaning the bathroom. All these tasks, you say to yourself, okay, I'm going to do these tasks while breathing fully, and if I do, then at the end of them, I can give myself 25 on the counter. And after a while, if you develop sort of a reward system, you can say to yourself, okay, if I get up to 500 breaths, then I will definitely give myself something, buy myself something, a small gift. Since that's all you're here to do, counting your breaths is very important to getting that going and making it second nature. And the more you count your breaths and the more you take note of how many times you're breathing through the counter, the more it will become second nature, and your life will dramatically improve. And the people in your life will dramatically improve. And it's an amazing thing to see. That's what the universe wants from me. It wants me to breathe, and it wants you to breathe. It wants everybody to breathe. Now, the universe has also a mechanism in place to store the energy that you waste by not breathing, because you basically suck energy out of your body if you do not take in enough oxygen. And that energy has to go somewhere. And guess where it goes? It goes to the moon. That's correct. You actually emit a certain radiation every time you lose energy, and that radiation feeds the moon. And the structure of the universe that I'm talking about is as follows. The sun is actually a planet with beings on it. Yes, beings. Their shine, the shine that nourishes the earth, are their wasted emotions. You can see there's a lot of wasted emotions going on the sun. But they are also much higher level beings than we are, which is why when we look to it, it is just so bright. This is the structure of the universe, okay? We are a satellite of a higher being. Now, you want to call those higher beings that live in the sun God? You may as well do that. And your life force basically travels up the ray of creation or down the ray of creation. And this all comes from Gurdjieff. If you really want to read up on this, you can also read Ouspensky, who breaks it down a little bit more specifically. It's all occult knowledge, but it basically just gives you the idea that you can race up the ray of creation or you can go down the ray of creation. The way you go down is always fragmented. The way you go up is more unified. As long as you know that you have to keep breathing, and that is like what you're here to do, all your other ambitions should be secondary to that. Understand what you're here to do. Underneath all that is the breathing. Once you get that down, everything follows from it, and you will become the Christ that you need to be an immortal. Now, there's something I do want to touch on, and that is what happens when somebody in this parallel universe dies. Can you bring them back? And the answer is you can. If you breathe deeply enough, you can bring them back. And guess what? They will not. If you maintain your breathing and you desire it, they will be back in your life. And it's like, but what will happen is you will shift into a parallel universe where they never died. And so oftentimes you won't notice that they came back. But this is how, any kind of death that happens in this parallel universe, if it really affects you, the answer is to really focus on your breathing and to understand what you're here to do. A lot of times those people get taken out of our existence for the sheer fact that you're not breathing. Yes. And it's just, I know it's a horrible punishment, but you can turn it around. And a lot of people in grief often do the opposite and don't breathe enough, and then they end up in worse straits. I mean, that's why feeling sorry for yourself is always the worst response when you encounter some kind of misfortune. Misfortune should always be met with more steady breathing and more concentration. Everything gets reversed. Remember Superman flying around, and that happens. That is the kingdom of heaven is a place where you can reverse time and bring things back and bring back the dead. And of course, that is what the Jesus Lazarus episode was about. So you realize that you should be taking tasks and breaking them up into 25 count, like whatever would take you about a half hour to do, and make sure that as you do it, you make a pledge that you will be breathing deeply as you do it. Then you add that to your tally. At the end of your day, you come up with a goal of a number, and once you meet that number, then you can go out and maybe buy yourself a little treat, a book, something that you think that you would want. Reward yourself for doing what you need to do.
It's very important just to make sure you're taking all the time really deep breaths. Okay? And if you're not taking deep breaths, then you should just be giving some kind of lecture like I'm doing. This is an example of taking deep breaths, talking. But if you're just sitting there and you're just breathing shallow breaths, you're not going to be able to have any kind of grip or any kind of handle on this reality. In fact, the reality starts to take you over and incorporate itself into it. Your subconscious basically takes over. You want your conscious brain to be more powerful than your subconscious, and the way to give your conscious brain the adequate power it needs is to give it oxygen. So do me a favor right now. Just take a deep breath and try to take it in through your diaphragm, just slow and in through your nose, and then hold it, and then blow out through your mouth. Every time you do that, something like that, you reset yourself and you set yourself on the right path of breathing. Most people will do something like that, and then they'll just go about their day continually breathing in a shitty way. But if you do whatever you can to keep up the breathing. I mean, I have counters. I use tally counters. I give myself rewards for how many breaths that I get up to, because I want my body to be like a wind tunnel. I want there to be oxygen just pumping through my blood. And then what happens is I start to feel really good. And when I finally get up to that level, and sometimes it takes to do some exercise or to go for a jog or something, to really get your blood pumping and get your breathing right. And then what you want to do is, while how you were breathing when you were running, you want to keep breathing like that. You want to treat that your existence here on land as though it's an existence in a body of water. You want to be taking long swimmer breaths whenever you're in an idle moment. And the best way to do that is just a presence of mind thing. It's just constantly go back to it. Go back to your breathing. Go back to taking a deep breath. Make sure just your deep breaths are becoming second nature. And what will happen is once you get up to this level where you're just taking in tons of oxygen and you're feeling really good. Now, this is where I get in some crazy shit too, because once you get to that level, okay, where you're breathing really hard and you're manifesting shit, guess what? All bets are off. The past is no longer the past anymore. Yes, you can manipulate the past. Now, the way you do that, suppose there's something that happened that you really regret and you wish that it didn't happen, and you want to be able to go back in time and fix it. Guess what? You can do that. You need to really be up on your breathing, man. You really need to be Now, when it comes to changing the past, it's very difficult to detect whether you've done so or not. But trust me, you are changing the past. And because of your breathing today, you have prevented many misfortunes already that you don't even remember. So anytime a misfortune befalls you, it is a signal for you to keep your breathing up, because guess what? That misfortune might very well just become part of some dreamscape and not really be part of reality anymore. You won't know the change. You won't see the change because your memories will adjust accordingly. You get a little shadow of what was, of what you changed with your positive breathing pattern. You get rewarded with good worlds. based on your reaction, based on your moral worth, based on what the good deeds that you do, but it's also based upon the way in which you treat your body and the way in which you conduct your oxygen machine. And if your oxygen machine is being used listlessly, or if it's breathing in conformity with a kind of depressed mental state, it's not going to get up to the level where you want to where you can manifest powers to time travel, to bring back the dead, to stay immortal, to stay young, to stay strong, to get stronger instead of weaker over time. All these things come first and foremost from the breathing. Don't even worry about doing anything else for this next week, okay? Over this new week, I want you to just relax, okay? I know you have a lot of goals. I know you have a lot of things you want to get done. All those things will get done, believe me. But the first thing you need to do is get your breathing right. You should be taking full, deep breaths all the time, okay? And I know I keep repeating myself, but it's so crucial, okay? If we let ourselves dip below that level, that will all go away, and we might end up in a fascist dictatorship as a reward for our shallow, crappy breathing and our suspect morality.
Your only job is to breathe deeply. That is your purpose. That is your teleological aim. Nothing else. If you do not accomplish that layer of existence, you cannot move on to any other layer. You must master this. And it's a skill. It's something that nobody's doing. Nobody's trying just to breathe as deeply as they can the whole day through. What they're doing is they're going about their life. They're treating breath as some secondary thing, as if it wasn't the gas, the energy that is driving everything. You have to tend to your engine, and you have to figure out how your regulator works, and it works like that. It works with oxygen. The more oxygen you get by second nature, the more oxygen you train your body to take in on a regular basis unconsciously, the higher your engine will perform, the higher your mind will perform. That's all that matters. It's just that simple, and nobody's mastering that first. You master that first. It takes years of wandering around doing aimless jobs for some people, but then they master it and they emerge. And that's when you get to the next level, is when you are second nature, taking in twice as much oxygen as everybody else. That is the definition of a superhero. You want to know what creates all these exceptional humans? It's oxygen level. I bet you if you measured the oxygen of anybody who's did something exceptional, it would be much higher. Do you want to live in a low oxygen world? The low oxygen world is very difficult. There's like economic hardship. People are talking about leveling the playing field because of so much income disparity. That's all part of the low oxygen world, my friend. All those thoughts of comparison, forget it. All the thoughts of getting angry at people, low oxygen, man. Because the more oxygen you take in, the less angry you are, the less you give a shit about the pettiness of the world. So do it. Walk around, figure out how to just take in. Forget everything else. Don't do shit. Take a few weeks off of work just to learn how to fucking breathe. Because guess what? They didn't train you. In fact, they tried to train it out of you. You're born breathing very heavily, very high, and they try to fuck with you with different little, the Scientologists call them engrams. It's just ways, psychic scars. that every time you encounter them, your breathing kind of shallows a little bit. And you have to start it up again. You have to be like, okay, I'm going to breathe again. And you constantly are having to restart your engine like some shitty fucking car that won't run. So let's get the car running. Let's let the motor idling. And that's at a high level. We're talking, and you can never take in too much oxygen. You're going to get a little lightheaded when you finally do. But let me just tell you, the best way to take in oxygen is to talk, is to give a speech. That's one of the best and most regulated forms of oxygen you can get. As you communicate to people, as I do this podcast, I am regulating my oxygen levels at a perfect height. For some reason, the relaying of information is, or any kind of art, often will be commensurate. If it's going right, it will be commensurate with the perfect level of oxygen for life and for advancement. Of course, not all talk is going to fall into that category. It has to be striking a chord. It has to be tapping into some deep, deep truth. And that's what all great art and all great wisdom does. But make no mistake, it didn't get there without a ton of oxygen. And how much are you taking in? How much are you just like letting your breath just kind of crawl along? Take in the minimum amount that you need. All you people who want to lose weight, you're carrying around all that extra weight. That's because you haven't pumped that out of you. Oxygen pumps fat out of you. Did you know that? People don't realize that too. Are you fat? Well, then start breathing, because then you will start pumping the fat out in the form of air. Believe me, try it. You want to be, you don't need, and that's why exercise is good, because it gets you to a point where you're breathing at a level that you really, that's really good for you. When you run and you get that really, that's the best. And you can feel it, and you're high on it. But you can be high on it all day, my friend. So if you need to drink some coffee or whatever just to get up there, fine. But ultimately, you should be able to rely on nothing but the breath. Because all these other things, like drugs and intoxicants, they're all just there to get you back to this and to remind you. They're not there to be taken every day just so you can, find your breathing again. So try this. Try getting off all drugs and breathe sober. Just take deep breaths sober. Measure your progress each day. Evaluate, how much did I breathe? How much oxygen did I take in, really, compared to what I could have? And you'll start to get a sense of it. You'll get a sense of when you're not breathing, and you'll start to see, wow, I really don't breathe. I barely take in enough oxygen to live. And then they wonder why people die so quickly. And yet in the Bible, they were living till 500. Anyway, we'll get into more theories about that. But just remember, it's the backbone of all wisdom. It's the backbone of all achievement, is achieving a certain level of oxygen. And it ain't easy, and it takes practice. It takes practice outside of the grind. Then you slowly dip your head into the grind. So after about a week of just only practicing making sure that you breathe constantly all day long, then you try going to the store while doing that. And you see how difficult it is. The minute you get distracted, guess what stops? Your breathing. And this is a society that is built on distraction. Distraction that is lethal if it's interrupting your breath. Hey, you can be distracted, but you won't be if you're fucking taking in a lot of oxygen. I think I've beat this horse to death, but I will beat it continually until I'm always talking to myself here, because I forget this. You can talk about all kinds of other theories, but if you're not taking in that oxygen, you're basically useless. Today I'm just going to remind you to breathe and how that is actually your only purpose on this earth.
Very important that you master the skill of taking in as much oxygen as you possibly can in an unconscious way. That is, that you've inculcated it into your normal pattern, that you take in twice as much, 3 times as much oxygen as the normal human being today. What we have here is a society where everybody is focused on the thing that the breath supports and not the breath itself. The breath is what supports all the goals that you have, all the different things that you want to do, all the creative ideas that you want to express. You must keep your engine idling at a very high level of oxygen, and nobody's doing that. Nobody's teaching that. I mean, they're doing some yoga and this and that for an hour a day, 2 hours a day, but then you go right back to your shallow breath walking around. Really try to master this skill. It's the precondition to any kind of achievement of really any higher level. Breathing, deep, long breathing. It's the key to making you look good. It's the key to making you feel good. It's the key to making you intelligent. It's the key to making you successful. And you really don't have to focus on anything else. That is, you're on this earth. Your cosmic purpose is to breathe. And anything that interrupts that flow is the devil, is evil, is something that should be avoided. And so if it's too distracting, whatever distracts you to the point where it shuts down your breathing, maybe looking at politics too long or getting into an argument with somebody, just breathe. Breathe it out. Breathe out any anger, any negative emotion. Remember, all those things are poisonous. But any kind of poison you take in, you can breathe it out. As long as you can breathe, there's hope. Remember that. So anything that happens to you, you can even breathe your way out of a possible universe. And I've talked about this on other episodes. You can breathe somebody back to life. Can you believe that? If somebody you know dies, you didn't want them to die, start breathing, motherfucker. Your memory will adjust. So there's not a way you can really tell that this is true. But I guarantee you it is. I see the other dimensions. That's true. But it doesn't matter, man. You want to be Brad Pitt. You want to be the best-looking man on the planet, whoever you think he is. You can become that. You just have to take in more oxygen. That's the secret. That's why people are good-looking and other people are not. It's not bone structure. It's not any skin. It's nothing. It's oxygen. Some people are taking in a shitload of it, and they're hot. So would you want to be hot, or do you want to be a low-oxygen motherfucker? And low-oxygen motherfuckers, let me just tell you, their world is different. Their reality is different. Their president is different. Remember that. They live in a darker parallel reality where shit's going really bad. That's what's all meant in the Bible when they talk about the apocalypse. It's all about what happens when you go into a low oxygen state. The apocalypse starts coming on around you. How do you stop that apocalypse? By breathing it away. Breathe. Take in deep, deep breaths constantly. Just spend like a week. Take off of work. Get off any kind of drugs. Just take a week. Walk around. Breathe deep. Make it second nature to take in 10 times more oxygen than anyone else. And you will see that you will be a magic person. You will have strange new powers. You will be like a superhero. And then you'll want to breathe more, and then you'll want to breathe more. And there's no limit to how high you can go. But once you get the capacity to breathe a certain level, then you plateau, and then you can even get to a higher level. Now, what is that higher level? Some say it's the beings on the sun, that the beings on the sun have floated there from breathing deeply. And that's what heaven is. Heaven is just a planet with a lot of people who are just glowing. And we are worshiping that planet because we aspire to it. And then we go back and look at the moon, and that's a smaller version of us. We appear to the moon as a sun. And so we're the light beings for the moon people, and the sun are housing or are inhabited by the light beings for the earth people. Now, you want to be a light being? You want to go into the sun and be one of those light beings? You have to breathe your way there. You breathe your way up the ray of creation. This is something that comes from Gurdjieff or Ouspensky, but I found it compelling. Bottom line, though, if you want to be good looking, if you want to be smart, if you want to be happy, seriously, if you want to have any kind of hope of happiness, you got to master this skill. There's just no way around it, and nobody has mastered it. And in fact, they beat it out of you. When you're a kid, you breathe much more than you do now. They've given you all these kind of mental scars that each time they come up in your head, they shallow your breathing. Because let me just tell you, if you breathe deeply, deep breaths all the time, you'll never need to sleep and you'll never die. How many people are taking in tons of oxygen every day? Yeah, you can go work out. That can help. That can reestablish your breathing pattern. But again, people work out for an hour, 2 hours. You got to be breathing at that level constantly. And now we've just been poorly trained because our society doesn't value breathing. It values every single thing that builds itself upon proper breathing, but then it just kind of loses sight of the fundamental. The fundamental is, can you go a whole day and not stop breathing? Because some people can't. Some people can't breathe like the whole day. They get distracted the minute they start thinking about something. They start thinking about their past. They start thinking about something that really pissed them off, and then their breathing goes shallow. And then they have to, a voice will come on their head, remember to breathe. And then they'll breathe maybe 3-4 times, and then they'll just go back to dormancy. You have to master this skill. Fuck everything else. Seriously, drop everything. If you can't get this down first, then you build your foundation on it. You're fucked.
Today I'm going to talk about the current crisis that the earth is dealing with. It's the earth that you live in because, guess what? You weren't breathing deeply enough. That's what happens. All the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse come when you're not breathing deeply enough. You enter this low oxygen world of disease. Everybody then gets fearful and then breathes even less. And they all collectively descend into chaos. There's an urge in us to stop breathing. We must fight it and breathe deep breaths. Now's the opportunity to do it when they're isolating us all here. You can just meditate. Meditate your days with long, deep, oxygenated breaths. Get plants. Surround your indoors with plant life that give off the oxygen so that you can fill the oxygen in the room and take it in. And then feed the plants with your carbon dioxide. Understand that that's why we are here. That's the reason. No other. And that's all you need to do to get out of it. Deep, deep breathing. Nothing else. Just stop worrying about so many stupid things. And breathe, motherfucker. You want this thing to be over in a week? Then breathe. Deep breaths. Get good sleep. Take breaks from drugs. Never do drugs more than 4 days in a row. Give yourself at least 3 days a week of cleanliness. Of sober mind. Give yourself breathing room. Take this time to learn how to breathe. The earth really has very little use for people that don't know how to breathe. The earth is also desperate to reduce our carbon footprint. And a disease is just what the doctor ordered on that score. But all this is the low oxygen world where we're destroying it, where we're being fought by the very earth itself, because we are the disease. We are the malignant tumor on this earth. And it's being given chemotherapy. It might even kill the host. It might kill other animals. But such is the measures that must be taken. Such are the measures, I should say. We can always breathe our way out of any situation. Always. We can always breathe back to life any individual or any world or any society. We can breathe ourselves into a prosperous future, and we cannot breathe ourselves into hell. Learn to breathe. Now you're going to notice, with all this fear being paraded around, that a lot of people aren't breathing. And a good thing to do is just when you near somebody, especially since you can't get too near, is try to get them to notice that you're taking deep breaths. Just take deep breaths around people. Make it contagious. Now that people are, when they're close to others, holding their breath for fear of contracting the virus, we've all already contracted it, my friends. If enough people get it, I should just say, enough people have gotten it to where we're all going to get it sooner or later in some form. So the best thing to do is to just have tons of oxygen pumping through you. Maybe you will jump into the high oxygen world where this plague never struck. It's very possible. It just takes oxygen. If you're enjoying this a little bit because you understand that we were on an unsustainable path, and this is what humanity and somehow deserves, don't get too comfortable with this, because it could get much, much worse. Your breathing is controlling it. Stay positive. Understand that this is a hologram. You're being matrixized to breathe. And those who don't breathe get even lower. And soon they become like one-celled organisms. Sad, lonely, blended in. Everything's going to be fine. You can carry us out of this. I'm counting on you. We'll talk soon.